The RIP series is fully underway, and I get that some of you may not really understand what this RIP series is all about, so we'll talk about that a little bit today. But I decided Paul's had his fun. It's time to get serious. The Elite XG270QG from ViewSonic breaks the traditional ugly appearance of gaming monitors by providing an ultra-clean design while still delivering gamers the features that they want most. Features like a 1 millisecond response time, IPS 165Hz overclock display, black brushed aluminum stand with tilt and swivel, mouse and keyboard cable anchors, and customizable subtle lighting. To learn more about the XG270GQ from ViewSonic and to see current pricing, click the link in the description below. So let's talk about what I built right here. These are two 3090s from EVGA. These are the For the Win 3 cards on risers. It's funny, I know people are gonna be like, you're copying Paul with that bracket thing. Fun fact, Phil told me to do this before we ever even saw Paul's video. And yeah, so I followed Phil's advice, not Paul's. Because the issue that we were dealing with the 3090s from when we just had them floating around was that if this is not perfectly straight up and down, the bridge does not make a good contact, and we kept losing connectivity with the SLI bridge. Therefore, it would see both cards in the OS, but then it wouldn't actually like SLI them. So here's what I came up with for our ice water, which is the next logical step. I know everyone's like, Steve's gonna win, he's going LN2. We're both going LN2, but we have decided under a gentleman's agreement that we will just work our way up to it rather than going right to it to the end, because then it's not as fun. But we don't want the series to be prolonged either and take too long. So that's why we let Paul kind of join us and have some fun. So here's what I came up with. Both of these blocks are actually using two different retention systems that I use just out of spare hardware. These are CPU blocks, and this is exactly how I did it with my 2080 Ti's. This one's using like an AlphaCool retention system. This one's using EK one. Both of these are EK supremacy blocks. And then for the retention, because the holes are not square like they used to be, they're rectangle, not by a lot, but there's about 10 millimeters longer on one length than the other, which means I couldn't use my Intel bracket like I was able to with the 2080 series. So what I did here is I took the AMD bracket, and then it covers the holes, just drilled holes, and then put the block back in it and held it down with screws and springs and all that. So there's actually a spring retention on here. It's not just like tightened down. And that was the problem with the 2080 series cards, is that I just had screws tightening it, and I had to stop where I thought like the pressure would be fine. But at least with the springs here now, it's holding it nice and tight. So it's just duct tape or Gorilla Tape on there with foam separating them, so they had some sort of support in the back. These are two PCI Express riser cables, which based on our testing so far, doesn't seem to be hurting our scores at all. And I know that what some folks might already be screaming is like, hey, everyone says the memory runs hot and the VRM's on this. What the heck? How quickly people forget about this guy right here. 12,000 BTUs worth of Blowimatron 5000 that we're gonna be blowing right on the PCBs, giving way better cooling with AC touching direct componentry than you would get with having a heatsink on there and just airflow. I've got foam shoved all in there around the socket to try and insulate it from air as much as possible, because we don't want condensation dripping in there. But fortunately, if any condensation does sort of build up, it's not gonna drip onto the motherboard, because clearly it's sitting on top of our Cooler Master, what was this? The Cooler Master Master Air Maker 8. This box is about as good as the whole thing was useful for. So, and then I've got to build a water loop for these. I've got to get ice, got to run to the store and get ice. And then we will go ahead and get this game started. Yay! That is probably the most solid, janky thing I've ever made. It's like too good. It's too good. All right. This bad boy's ready to rip so many Pauls. All right, so here is the setup. As you can see, it's a hybrid. Ice water along with air conditioning. And the air conditioning is actually working really well at keeping the SMDs nice and cool. We're back on the 10900K, like I said we were gonna do, because if anything I've learned from the crazy different CPUs that are in the top 10, between Ryzen, Intel, Extreme, non-Extreme, it's obvious we don't need to deal with trying to get the Dominus to be stable at 5 gigahertz, because that was just a pain in the butt. Why not use the 10900K? So here's the riser cage setup like you saw. I've got some insulation on there. I've got the AC blowing at it. If we come over here and take a look at precision, here's our temps. So our GPU core is sitting at 2. That is quite literally about as cold as it can get under idle conditions, because we do have ice water. Second graphics card sitting at 5. I think I might have a slight mounting issue with that card, because it's always been a couple degrees higher Actually, you know, I'm using a different thermal paste between the two as well. One's the one that comes with EK, which is the higher one, and then that lower one's one that comes with Alpha Cool. But one issue we're seeing though, and I'm not sure why, the second card isn't wanting to turbo. It's not going past 1800 megahertz, it's just sitting there. I'm not sure why. We haven't tried Port Royal yet to see where we land, but I noticed it with Heaven. But we've done a complete DDU driver uninstall. Let's take a look at the ICX temps. So you can see the memory is at 28, 26, 26, 20. That's not great. I really would like this to be lower, but you can see the one with the back plate. These are the face of the card too. We can't see the back side, I don't believe. So I have a feeling I'm not gonna be able to truly like overclock the memory like I want, but I think we're gonna pick up a lot of core or score with the core. So if you come over here and take a look inside the ice chest, we've got the 360 rad in there. The ice is still melting, which is why we're getting such good temps, because it's not all the energy has been turned from ice to water. But we've got this pond pump, as you can see right here. This picks up water from the corner and then it blows water across the rad, and the water does make its way down through the fins. You need to have movement across the radiator, whether it's submerged in ice water or air. Let's just go ahead and crank the power limit, crank the GPU limit. Earlier we observed it go to 2100 and just stay there. If we could get 2100 megahertz as our like average clock, I think we could potentially hit over 28,000 for sure, maybe 28.5. If we can get both cards to behave properly, potentially 29,000. So remember, no overclock applied here. 27,510. Oh shit! Here's the fun fact: the back plate with the heat sinks touching this memory with the AC blowing at it are the same temps as the one that just has cold air hitting it. So I'm constantly trying to adjust things here. But if you look at that score up there, have a look at that. 28,128, and we haven't touched memory yet. And I want to point out that for some odd reason, our 3090 for the Win 3 cards from EVGA have two different firmwares on it. One is boosting higher than the other. And we looked at GPU-Z and we could see that one of them has a 50 megahertz difference between the cards. And I'm like, okay, there's two different boost tables on these cards. I think we have second place, which is what Paul was like, I was second place, you're not second place. 28,059 was second place, and we're not even done. So as you can see, we are gonna go, and look, Steve was clearly doing something since last night. He's got mismatched cards. Until he gets better cards, that's not gonna get any better. What did I say earlier? I could hit maybe 28,500, and if something magical happens, maybe 29,000. But if we look at the GPU-Z BIOS right here, so check this out. This is card number 1. This is our main card. No, actually it's backwards in GPU-Z for some reason, like they're inverted. So this is actually the second card. 1850 is the boost, and 1445 is the base. But if we look at the other card, 1900 is the boost, and 1495 is the base. But if we look at the BIOS version, do they change? No, they don't. So I'm so confused as to what is happening right now, considering they are both the same BIOS, but are giving us two very different boost tables. But the other thing that we're dealing with right now is if I go back here and look at MSI Afterburner on that last run, so you can see our GPU 1 temperature was 13C, and then our GPU 2 temperature is 30C. And I think I know why that is. And that's keeping that from boosting up any higher, honestly. And we know for a fact, temperature equals stability. So what I need to do right now, and this sort of sucks because I have ice now going to waste. So I need to take these caps off right here because underneath there, I feel like I'm not getting a good enough mounting pressure on there. So if I was to right now take this off, I don't know, I feel like that spring should be doing the job, but I can try a stiffer spring and see what happens. I don't know if you can see this though, I'm also stacking washers right there to get the spring to stand up a little bit higher. So I tightened up the block as best I could. It's still about 2C difference from the main card, which is funny because usually the main card is with the monitor hooked up to it, it's the one that's got the slightly higher voltage and higher temperature. So we'll just have to see what happens under load right now. I adjusted some boost clocks a little bit and put a little bit of memory on this. And we think the best thing to do in between each run is turn off the system, let the AC just chill the card and all the SMDs like the VRMs and the memory and all that stuff, and then do a run. It doesn't take long to bring it down. It's much colder in here today than it was when we were doing this the other day. The temperature's starting to cool off a little bit in California. It's only 100 degrees today. And so Yeah, and the AC is helping with condensation too, because we're blowing dry air at it. Not to mention we're blowing air at it that's much closer to the temperature at which the water is than just letting ambient air hit it. So ambient hair?
Ambient hair. Steve enters the chat.
I know. Did somebody say hair?
Yeah.
Wow. That's some good margin of error right there. I said we would let Paul have his fun, and I meant it, okay? And we're not done. 28,497, right? Let's just see what happens. 28,497. I would love to hit 29,000 today, but I don't think I could pick up 500 points right now. If I could run the 1200 megahertz, turn it off, let it chill, run the 1200 megahertz.
Just send it. It's not like it's gonna blow up if you try. Wow.
Holy crap, we might actually get 29,000 today. This is not cool. I feel like we're maxing out. Okay, the memory 45C. Let's just go for it, right? Oh God. Ah! All right, so we're keep having problems with the second card here, and we're getting a bunch of crashing now. We haven't been able to get another run since that last 28,700 something. So I decided, and I had a retention clip go bing, they fly off the back, so then our mount got all jacked up. So I figured I'd at least see, because we knew this one was running warmer, what this mount looks like. And now I can take the card off of here, and I need to figure out a better mechanism for mounting, I think. No, actually, I think I'm just gonna change the pace. All right, so this is gonna probably be our last run for the day. I made a mistake when I built this second block that it just dawned on me what happened with it. It's kind of loose on there and it's not flat against the CPU, and I think every time I mount it down, it's bowing. And when it bows, it's pulling the CPU back up. Or GPU back up. I'm saying CPU because it's a CPU block, but yeah, it pulls it back up sort of because it's not getting a nice flat, even tension downward. And that's because the O-ring in there is super, super crushed over how old it is. I thought about it. I even pointed it out to Phil when I was putting it together. I was like, look how flat and crushed this O-ring is. And so there's a void in there now where the bracket isn't staying flat. So our GPU is still getting up to about 43C on ice water on card number 2. And as such, it means it's dropping a few bins versus the main card, even though I've got the offsets now dialed properly based on the weird boost table I just showed you. But we got some pretty damn good scores today, given I'm kind of excited that I didn't max out today, because I'm gonna revisit the way I'm gonna redo that tension on that bracket. And I feel like that means we have room to improve on this design. And it also makes me want to go with full cover water blocks after all. Like I said earlier, I don't like full cover water blocks, harder to control condensation. We're getting no condensation dripping off these cards whatsoever. They are separate from the motherboard, which means no dripping on the motherboard. The AC is doing a fantastic job at keeping the components cool just with blasting it air. But what if we had water chilled memory and water chilled, and it just crashed. Water chilled memory and water chilled VRMs. That would have given us pretty awesome scores, I think, because we cannot push the memory as far as we could on our air conditioner with the air cooler. Let me try it one more time. I'll pull the memory back just a tad. We'll try one more run, and then that's where we'll call it a day. But I can't get the memory to go past 650 when I was getting 7 or 1200 before. So with that, here's our last run. Let's see if it passes, and I'll reveal to you our final margin of error. I call it a margin of error because when I beat Paul by 29 points, people told me I didn't earn it. It was just margin of error. But then when he beat me again by a couple of points, everyone congratulated him.
Double standards.
Triple standard, what are you talking about?
Triple standard.
Steve beats us by 1, everyone will be like, he is the god. I'm not jealous. You're jealous. Yep, insta crash because we are out of temperature. That's the problem. We have that bad mount, we're out of temperature. So we had 26,000 somewhere, or no, 27,000 today, 27,549. Then we had a 28,128, and then a 28,497, 28,759, and then a 28,773. So that right there, if you ask me, unless something happened between earlier and now, this should get us a good margin on second place. Let's take a look. There it is.
Hey.
All right, well, hey, Paul, I'll let you have your fun. Steve, I know you're pulling up from behind because I see you on the leaderboard and I know you got something planned. So I guess we'll just sort of hang tight until I get bored again. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you guys are enjoying the whole RIP series. If you guys are not aware, this is all friends. This friendly. Kingpin, obviously, we know is like Kingpin. This isn't between Kingpin, it's between Steve and I, and, well, Paul's gonna, that's okay. Yeah, this is all friendly competition. So stop complaining that all the trash talking is making you think bad about us, because we're doing it in good jest. Okay, just ingest it as entertainment. Just take it in as entertainment, okay? And just, it's fine. Shit's in the toilet. And will you turn the camera off?